A national treasure to many, a figure of hate for others. Dr. Anthony Fauci was the face of America's response. And just months after his retirement, I wanted to know how well he believes the world dealt with COVID. I hope you don't mind me saying, but from the other side of the world, looking at the American response to COVID, it looked, frankly, like a mess. What was it like inside it?
It's complicated. If you put it the way I like to describe it, into two major buckets, the scientific bucket and the public health bucket. The scientific bucket was a resounding success from the time that the sequences of the virus were made public to the time we actually had vaccines. That's a scientific accomplishment that is truly unprecedented. With regard to the public health response, that's where we got into trouble. We had some states doing things one way, some states doing things the other way. And then, unfortunately for us, we had the most historic outbreak that the world has seen in over 100 years that fell right smack in the middle of profound political divisiveness in the country.
Medical experts.
Dr. Anthony Fauci seems to favor what the Democrats want.
It's important that we listen to our elected leaders, not the medical bureaucracy.
Studies recently came out that showed that your political ideology influenced greatly whether or not you accepted interventions like vaccinations and masks.
They want to throw God's wonderful breathing system out the door.
You literally cannot mandate somebody to wear a mask knowing that that mask is killing people.
And it seems extraordinary, but it was true, that your chances of getting hospitalized or dying if you were a Republican is greater than if you were a Democrat. And then finally, we had a lot of misinformation and disinformation that was very difficult to push back on. I mean, coming right up to the president, propagating it.
It's going to disappear. One day, it's like a miracle. It will disappear.
3 years on, COVID has not disappeared, and the hunt for its origins continues. Did COVID jump from animal to human at the Wuhan wet market? Or was the city's renowned Institute of Virology to blame?
Will there ever be a definitive answer on the origins of COVID-19?
We really do want to know what happened here.
Do you have a particular view? Do you know how COVID started?
No, absolutely not. And that's the reason why the debate goes on. But when you don't have a definitive proof of one or the other, you must always keep an open mind. Despite the disinformation that goes around about conspiracies and things like that. But then you say to yourself, take a look at what are the data that would strongly indicate one versus the other, not TikTok and tweeting, but scientific reviewed literature that give not conclusive proof, but strong evidence that it's a natural occurrence, superimposed upon the historical perspective that this has happened before with SARS-CoV-1, with MERS. Then you look at the other side of the coin and you say, what are the evidence, suggestive or otherwise, that it's a lab leak? And you know what the answer to that is? Zero.
But Dr. Fauci himself is now firmly at the centre of the never-ending lab leak debate.
Why did Dr. Fauci work so hard for just one of those theories? Why was it so important to push one over the other?
Reportedly accused by his former boss, Dr. Robert Kadlec, of silencing suspicions raised by scientists that COVID came from a lab to protect his reputation and the government institute he oversaw that was funding research at the Wuhan lab. What's your response to what he said?
What is so unfortunate is what's happened with rumor and innuendo and conspiracy theory. If you look at the things like emails.
Fauci gets an email from Dr. Anderson which says what? Virus looks engineered, virus not consistent with evolutionary theory. I don't know how this happens in nature, but it would be easy to do in a lab.
I said, what you need to do is to, in a very open way, get a number of the best scientists in the world and take a look at that. And if, in fact, it's true, we should notify the FBI, MI5, and everybody. That is documented in an email. And then after it was over, I then also summarized saying, What you need to do is when you make your decision, publish it in the open literature so that it can be peer reviewed by everybody. Now, I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound like a cover-up.
I think people would be interested, though, in this idea that you were funding research with that Wuhan lab. A, were you? And B, is that fairly common practice?
Oh, it's totally common practice. We fund labs throughout the world, including Australia. And another thing that gets lost in the translation, it was a $120,000 grant out of a $6 billion budget. We call that pencil dust when it comes to funding. And I'm glad you're giving me the opportunity to say this, because if you look at the viruses that they were studying, they were doing surveillance to try and determine, are there viruses out in the environment that actually have the capability of infecting humans. They weren't doing anything to make them infect humans.
Dr. Fauci, knowing that it is a crime to lie to Congress, do you wish to retract your statement where you claimed that the NIH never funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan?
You do not know what you are talking about, quite frankly. And if anybody is lying here, Senator, it is you.
Now, I don't know what else is going on in China.
Okay,
I'm just telling you what the NIH funded. It's unquestionable that they were so far removed from SARS-CoV-2 that they never could have turned into SARS-CoV-2, even if the investigators wanted it to.
By the way, if you have any spare pencil dust, I'm sure I've got some people here would be happy to take some of that pencil dust. Looking back, though, the experience we've all been through with COVID, you obviously in the trenches, but just all of us, do you think humanity's learned anything?
You know, I hope they did. And I wrote a paper in the Journal of Infectious Diseases for everybody to see lessons from COVID-19, why it's important to invest in basic research. If we didn't have the ability to make those vaccines as quickly as we did, there would have been millions of more people dead. The other lesson is that misinformation and disinformation is the enemy of public health. There's no doubt about that. My concern is that corporate memory of the population fades quickly. And once you get out of a situation, you focus on what your next problem or current problem is, as opposed to remembering that sooner or later, it may not be in my lifetime or your lifetime, or it may be next year, we're going to get another pandemic. So we really need to be prepared.
I hope we're prepared. That paper in the Journal of Infectious Diseases sounds fascinating. Have you thought of publishing it on TikTok?
I don't do social media, period.
It's going to be hard to win the fight. It's going to be hard to win the fight. Dr. Anthony Fauci, thank you very much for speaking with us.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure. It was really good to be with you. Thanks a lot.